Dr. Ackerman, take it away.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and I'm glad that you got out and had a chance to move around a little bit, because otherwise I was going to start us off with some calisthenics, because it's just about time for my nap. I don't know about you. So Mark gave me this title, and I'm not sure that it really fits, but I'm not really talking to you about social media in medicine. I'm just going to tell you a little bit of a story about how I got started, or tried to get started with my blog and on Twitter. And if we're lucky, by the time we get to the end of my generous 10 minutes, we're going to have talked around this little green dot that sits in the center of the Venn diagram. And I'd like you to keep that diagram in mind as we're going through, and see if you agree with me by the time we get to the end that, in fact, we have found that sweet spot. So I have spent, and by way of introducing myself, I guess what I should say is I'm a physician, I'm a pediatrician, I'm a pediatric intensivist by training, which means that if you disagree with me, I'll smack you down. But really what it means is that I have spent the majority of my professional life taking care of children who are critically ill or injured in an intensive care unit environment. These are not the itty-bitty, teeny-weeny little babies that you see in neonatal ICUs, but the real people children that you can see and touch and talk to, and have lived with most of us in our homes and lives. And about 5 years ago, I was recruited away from Baltimore, where I kept rooting for the Orioles, no matter how bad they did, and managed to get recruited down to Roanoke, Virginia, which is where I currently am, as chair of pediatrics and as chief medical officer for the Children's Hospital. And as I was thinking about, well, this community knows nothing about the fact that we have a children's hospital. In fact, it's a virtual children's hospital. It's not in a separate building or anything. It's what many children's hospitals are, hospitals within hospitals. How do I grow awareness of this community that we have it? How do I get the community behind us? Because in very short order, I'm going to need to start raising some money to make this place much better than it currently is. And I said, well, all right, I'll start a blog. That seemed like a good thing to do. It took me about a year to convince the powers that be that I was not going to embarrass them too much, that I was not going to get landed in compliance jail, which can happen to us in medicine as well as the financial sector. And finally, we started it. Well, that was great. But then there was a problem. The problem was that after, this is the very beginning of my Google Analytics, and I think all of the initial activity was really me, probably checking the blog, 20 or 30 times a day. All of my marketing people checking the blog 30 or 40 times a day. And so it wasn't really very meaningful. I had one little spot there that looked pretty good, and that was when my 20-something daughter, posted one of my blog posts on Facebook, and all of her friends read the post, and that was great. And then what you see is there was nothing. Okay, so that was my problem. And so I said, maybe I need to know something about blogging. I mean, I know a lot about a lot, but I really didn't know anything about blogging. I thought, well, okay, you write something, put it up there, it's great. And most of what I read, I don't remember, because I read about 3 or 4 different books. None of them were actually very stellar, but the only thing I recall is it said, you really can't be in only one platform, it's not going to work. Oh, okay, that makes sense. So then I said, well, they're all talking about this thing called Twitter. I always thought Twitter was what people used to talk about bathrooms, as Mitch Joel has pointed out. But in fact, I said, all right, I'll try it. I got on Twitter, actually joined May 13th of last year, so almost a year ago, put out my first tweet May 18th and said, I have no idea what the heck is going on. So I went back to my usual resource, which is Amazon, and downloaded by accident, complete accident, Mark's Tao of Twitter book, and read it and said, oh, makes sense. Okay. So I read it and got on Twitter, started making more sense to me, and that led me into deciding that I really needed to form a community or get into a community within Twitter. And And I did that by joining a tweet chat. And the particular tweet chat that I joined is something called HCSM, which is Health Communications, or Healthcare Communications in Social Media. And a little cousin that was just being born, which is HCSM VAC, which was a group of people interested in seeing if they could use social media to improve vaccination rates in the country. And while I was and the tweet chats were happening on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m., and I think there were maybe 5 or 6 or 7 of us that could routinely guarantee that we'd get up early. For me, it was late. So we'd get on and started chatting about the problems and why do people not like to vaccinate their children, and why is this going to cause the destruction of the world? And all of a sudden, a familiar name got on, and it was a person who I had actually read my blog and had commented a couple of times and was following me on Twitter. And she got on and she introduced herself and said, "I am a mom of a special needs child. I used to be a reluctant or anti-vax mother. I am now pro-vaccine." And one of the participants said, "Can you tell us how that happened?" And this is what she said. And in case you can't read it, it says, "Yes, Dr. Ackerman is the person who changed my mind. I read her blog." And I went, oh my God. There are 4.5 people a day reading my blog, and I have had an impact on one of them. So we started talking more through the chat every Saturday morning, and eventually brought this wonderful group of people together who was comprised of moms, physicians, healthcare educators, IT people, clinical psychologists who work in areas of how to motivate folks. And it all came down to, how would you best motivate somebody? It's not just giving them information. Clearly it's not what happens in the doctor's office when parents take their kids in, because doctors don't have time anymore, right? How much time does your doctor spend with you when you go into the office? 10 minutes, that's it. You're in and out. I don't have time to talk to you about the pros and cons of anything. So what came out of this tweet chat and this one woman's comment was the fact that what we needed to do was bring some real live doctors together and get together with our community. And so we did. We had this thing that we called a vaccine town hall. And what I'm showing you is people sitting on the side, nobody in the middle. And that's because there was a class that actually decided to come. There were 2 or 3 medical students who wanted to attend. They asked permission to attend. It was in the evening, but they asked permission of their instructor to be excused. The instructor said, "No, you may not be excused. We will all go with you." So I had an entire class that was composed of both medical students as well as other people in this interprofessionalism class. So it was nursing students, nurse practitioners, PAs, EMTs, respiratory therapists, you name it. We decided we'd make it a combination in real life and social media event. And so I had some folks there from my organization who were following things in terms of tweets coming in for questions, and following things in terms of tweeting what we were saying live. And that's just another shot of that. We also had a little, you can see the red circle is our low-tech approach to answering questions, which is write it down on an index card. And otherwise, people were able to tweet us questions and we answered them live. So you didn't really have to be high-tech to be there. And this shows you there were more people in the audience other than just the students. We had a great time. There were 4 of us. We talked about a whole bunch of things, including the one guy on the panel was brave enough to come, and he was from one of the community practices that had just announced in the newspaper that they would no longer accept patients in their practice if they would not accept being vaccinated. So we had a nice little chat about that and talked about a bunch of stuff. And so I think, and there's my 10 minutes, I think what you can see is that I believe we were able to pull together personal health care issues of should I vaccinate my child, with patient and family education of what are the pros and cons of this, with public health issues such as herd immunity or community immunity, and bring that all together with social media marketing, saying we can help you and we can help the world that you live in at the same time, building trust, building brand awareness, and engaging the community. And then, you know, we saw some upshot in the analytics. So thank you very much.